This devlog, we're going to add these spooky graveyards to the game as part of one of the first quests I'm adding. I've spent the past few weeks adding tools, now it's time to actually put them to use, as the level editor is mostly usable now. This is a game about exploration and discovery in a high fantasy world, which attempts to distill the feeling of discovering things into a gameplay loop which can be played well in short bursts. I make a video each week and the game is slowly coming along, although I did also spend quite a lot of time this week just fixing bugs. And I'm also going away for this weekend, so I really had to churn this week's work out. Okay, so I'm not going to be here this weekend. So what I'm thinking is, I'm going to try and just do content for the first bit of the week to front load it, and then if I have time at the end of the week, I'll just develop tools or something like that. So I've written out a nice little plan. It's quite straightforward, but again, this is going in the open source base. So let's have quick story time. An old man asks the player to check on the tomb of his deceased wife. He is too old to take flowers there himself now, so asks the player to find some flowers to place on the grave. Now remember, you'd be able to find these things in the overworld similar to what you can do with like the apple trees. The graveyard itself is just another place, so you actually have to go out into the world and find it. However, when they do that, a number of skeletons jump out of the grave, start chasing the player, and it's all very spooky. The player then returns to the old man and tells him that he put the flowers on the grave, but also that the skeletons have appeared. In doing so, the old man becomes visibly shaken and tells the player of an ancient prophecy that at some point, the tomb of all these various deceased people was going to be under threat by some sort of necromancer. Now that's the end of the first quest, and really what I want to do is chain quests together, so you've got to do things like put the flowers on the grave to unlock the next quest. So the next quest after that is going to be going down into the catacomb and essentially finding that it's overrun with skeletons and monsters. Right, let's make some flowers. Obviously the flowers themselves were quite easy to add, but I was also able to use my nice new export via layers from the same pipeline to get these different models in place. Unfortunately though, I ended up uncovering quite a significant bug while doing that. I got totally distracted from doing content again because I've got to try and fix this kind of stupid export issue with Goxel. What's going on is some files aren't getting exported properly, and I think I know the reason why at this point, which is this XFB thing. So this is X11 virtual frame buffer. What this is essentially doing is, for a graphical application like Goxel, it pretends that a display actually exists, because of course this is being run through the command line. As if you run it just to export something, you see in the dock, like the window appears for a split second and then closes itself. So this is a problem, because then if I don't have a display, then it will complain, even though in theory it doesn't need a display. And that is an example of badly written code, unfortunately. So I had no choice but to use XFFB, but it seems like it's just annoying now. Sometimes it works fine, and other times it doesn't, so it's not deterministic. In the end, the solution ended up being to modify Goxel so it doesn't start up the display when I don't actually want it to. So what I want to see is that I'm able to run the Goxel binary this will output inside the container where it doesn't have access to a display without having to use X virtual frame buffer. Hooray! Hooray! So I think after like 3 or 4 hours, I've managed to fix this issue with the build pipeline. They do look quite out of place there, don't they? I mean, look how big they are in comparison to the trees. And then pick this, I should get an apple. It's obviously not meant to be that. Oh, it crashed. Right, so you pick the flower, boop, and you get a flower in the inventory. Yay. Yeah, they don't look bad actually. I've essentially only got 1 day in order to do as much stuff as I can. I'm thinking maybe I'll just get as much done as that first quest as I possibly can. So let's make a graveyard. I wanted the graveyard to look not too shabby, but also not that well kept. Again, I'm editing these models in the same file, which is a much better workflow, as I can see what all the pieces look like together now. The thing is that when it comes to actually making tools, you never really know what's going to be useful, but that's definitely been a useful addition. I can already tell. Actually getting the models into the level editor is a bit annoying because the editor does really still need some work. I have started working on scene tree manipulation now though, which is one of the major features of any level editor. I'll talk more about that at the end of this video, but right now I have to add the new meshes to the file in the text editor, then position them with the editor, which obviously is gross. I was keen to see how the models actually looked in the world as I went, as this will be one of the largest structures I've placed into the overworld so far. Look at this tree. And if any of you guys watched the last week's devlog and you saw me spend all that time trying to get rid of trees, the goblin campsite isn't using the new system, so that doesn't count. Part of this quest is going to be actually going underground to the catacomb to find the necromancer, so I started work on that here. It needed a separate door because access only becomes available when the player has reached a certain point in the quest. And you can kind of see it taking shape here, but unfortunately that was as far as I got before I had to leave. So that's it for this week. I was kind of hoping to get a bit further into that quest, but you know, time flies and I only really had until Friday to actually finish the work. And if you love the sight of strange buildings in your overworld, then why not watch this video, where I talk about strange buildings like the ruins that I added.